Welcome to Let's Go Again, a podcast for the independent class where we contemplate the big questions like what is the artist's role in society? And we strategize for the smaller ones, like how do I grow an audience when my posts reach about 5 people per day? We'll tackle those ideas and everything in between. I'm your host, Courtney Romano, a writer-director in Providence and your comrade in arms as we navigate this indie artist group project. On a film set, when a director wants to do another take, you often hear them say, "Let's go again." It signals a chance to reset and keep trying to get the shot. My hope is that each episode is another chance for us to reset and figure out this path together, outside of the system and on our own terms. So, as they say on a set, let's go again. The idea of independent art as a general concept has taken up about 98% of my brain cells since 2014. Back then, it was very much in the zeitgeist as democratization. We're democratizing art making. Everyone can make a film on their phone. I mean, you still hear people like Spielberg and Scorsese say things like, there's no excuses, just make a film on your phone. And of course, there is merit to that. There's a lot of things that we've accomplished in the past 10 years. I was able to self-publish a book. I know lots of friends who have made things that have been self-distributed or self-funded in different ways and actually, really legitimately grew their careers to the next level. So it's not to say we don't have a camera in our pocket and we can't just go make a film, but it's not quite that simple. And a lot of advice for people like us, independent artists, a lot of advice goes along the lines of, you make your independent work and then you're going to break into the system. They'll cite series like Insecure by Issa Rae or Broad City. And they'll say, hey, look, you can just go out and make your thing. And then Amy Poehler finds you on the internet and scoops you up and puts you on Comedy Central. And there you go. There's your career. You have been found because you are very, very smart and talented and you have a camera in your pocket. And that's how it all works. And if you're good enough, you'll rise to the top. That is advice that at least I have heard. But today on this episode, I want to talk about how to be what I'm calling a 21st century artist. The idea is always that you are breaking into the system. Like you'll do your little thing that you'll do your little web series, and then you'll actually get to make work, which I personally, as someone who has made a web series, feels like that is kind of dismissive and missing the point. From what I understand, at least in comparable industries, is let's take a look at like just small businesses in general, right? There's a small business owner and they create this product and it's awesome and it scales and it grows and they make a lot of money and they have an exit strategy and they sell it and then someone else takes it over, right? This happens all the time. It is how people do business in the world. And then once someone else, a bigger company, a bigger corporation takes it over, generally what you see is like all the chutzpah, all the fun parts of the company die off. Everything gets streamlined down to make shareholders wealthy and do the least amount of work possible. And the person who created the thing has nothing to do with it anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that if you are the creator and you're like, you know what, I want to make this thing and I want to make a lot of money and get out, like totally fine. I will say, I think there are a lot of people who feel like they don't want to make the thing and get out. They want to do the thing. They want to be in the trenches. No, maybe they don't want to be uploading the web series to YouTube and like figuring out SEO. But if they have to do that, and that means that they still have creative control, that means that they can kind of direct their path and be visionary about what they want to create. That scenario actually sounds more enticing than selling it off to a corporation. And I'm putting it in business terms because I think we assume, I feel like I have often assumed that this is business. That's business, but we do art. However, I will remind myself here that it is the business of show. It is show business. And at the end of the day, there are shareholders. There are, people with routing numbers and account numbers, who want those routing numbers and account numbers to be filled up with little dollar bill signs every day. And that is the bottom line. So how do we do this, right? How do we figure out as artists, okay, wait, I want to grow, I want to break in, I want to break out, but the system that I want to break into may end up taking me away from my art. It's this weird paradoxical thing. And once we've broken in, the game completely changes. We are doing different things. We're not in the art trenches. So, what I want to talk about today is how to be a 21st century artist and not play to break into someone else's system, but play the game to create our own self sustaining, powerful, undeniable, generative system, not to break into an industry that's dying. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, the first thing that we have to do is define what even is a 21st century artist. And to do that, I think we have to actually define what is a 20th century artist. In the 20th century, the rules were you are going to go to college, you're going to start at the bottom of some kind of corporate or, industry ladder. You're going to do grunt work for a long time. You're going to befriend an older mentor. That person's going to take you under their wing and teach you how to do things. And then you're going to work up the ladder. You're going to pay your dues, though. Just no, you're going to pay your dues. But then one day you're going to get this amazing opportunity to stop getting coffee as the writer's assistant and start adding ideas in the writer's room. And then if you're really smart and really talented and you can really do this work, thank goodness, because it's a meritocracy. And in a meritocracy, if you are good at what you do, you get a job. And that is what we understood. At least that's what I understood when I was growing up. I was like, oh, that's how it works. You work really hard and then you get opportunities. And if you can be gritty and resilient and stick with it, then things will happen. You will break in. And I'm not going to go through the history of the past 20 years because we've all lived it. And let's not recap what we already know down to our bones. But that is not how it works. So if that is what the 20th century artist is all about, I defined a 21st century artist as an independent artist who is working at the cutting edge of both process and distribution. Essentially, they're making cool, edgy stuff and getting their stuff seen in cool, edgy ways. And they do this by embracing the natural limitations of their life circumstances and their arts circumstances. And they work with the money and time and people and materials that they have access to right now in their life, not in some distant future, but right now. And that's the first thing. And then they also reject an industry playbook. So they do not pay dues. They say, what can I make right now? The underlying principle to both of those things, where they are embracing their limitations and rejecting the industry playbook, is this underlying principle of they do not wait. They do it now. So I have a couple of examples of people and companies who I think are doing this really well. The first one is Meta Label. And this is a release platform for independent artists. And it's really cool. It feels like a collaborative space with a kind of creative universe around it. It's not just like, hey, this is a great platform for you to really release your work. They're also creating content and telling stories and offering their own products all around this release service. The second example is Byline, which is a media outlet based in New York City. And I love what they're doing because they do quarterly issues. I believe they're quarterly issues, or maybe they're monthly, but they're doing these really deep dive, beautiful essays from writers and photographers and filmmakers and journalists and all different kinds of people to make these very vibrant stories. And they have them hosted on their own site, on the Byline site. And then they merge with real life in-person events. And this is a very popular thing in New York, particularly. Not that when I lived there, I went to any of them because I have two small kids, so I didn't go anywhere, but they're cool. They're the readers come and they mingle and they talk with the owners and the co-founders and the writers. And then the third example is a woman who I actually, a couple of years noticed her on TikTok. And then recently, within like the past 6 months or so, I noticed her on Substack. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because I feel like I don't usually see the crossover between TikTok creators and Substack creators. That being said, of course, that all changed when they like took TikTok away and then brought it back and yada, yada. But either way, it was interesting to me to see her long form essays on Substack. And this woman is Kristen Tepper, and she goes by Tepper, and she's on Substack, and she talks about the movie industry. And what's interesting about her, the other two examples I have are examples of independent artists who are kind of working in their own conglomerate, right? There's more than one person working on this project of Meta Label, and there's more than one person working on this project of Byline. And I wanted to pull it out as an example because I think that we can think about, well, all right, what are the natural next steps in being an independent artist? And for me, at least, I naturally go to, well, I make it as big as I can and I grow as big as I can. And I'm not saying that is not Tepper's goal. I don't know what her goals are, so I'm not going to, guess at those. But what I see her doing is already successful. And she's one person. And she does talk about being mentored and working at the bottom of the industry, starting to work her way up in LA, in the film industry, I should say. But that is not the only thing she's doing. She's also creating this whole universe of her own online. And these are three examples, I think, of people or companies, groups of people who were saying, I'm going to embrace exactly where I am right now. I'm going to embrace exactly what I have at my fingertips. Legacy media and traditional media, there's this disconnect between the media and the, common everyday readers. Well, for Byline, we're not going to do that. We are going to have parties and we're going to hang out together. Meta Label doesn't want to be a place where you post and publish. They want to be a place where you release. Okay. So they are engaging in an action that we do every day, but in a different way, in a cutting edge way. They are daring to reframe a very mundane task that we do every day. And then Tepper is growing this whole side, and I don't even want to call it side. She's growing this whole wing of what she's creating and making and interested in, doing a script readings, talking about how she makes pitch decks, giving her takes on the industry, as she is also building her own career and writing her scripts and working in the industry. She's kind of like all hands on deck everywhere. And I think that if you start looking around, you see there are examples of 21st century artists who are really cutting through. And I think that there are some people who will say like, well, I'm making my own work. And that is very important. But that doesn't necessarily cut through. So I want to talk about 4 different skill sets of the 21st century independent artist that are imperative to cutting through the noise and getting seen. So the first skill set is to know how to write. And I don't mean like you need to write a novel or a screenplay or write music. I don't mean artistically know how to write. Like, let's just assume that you artistically know how to write. Otherwise, you're probably not pursuing an independent career in art. I'm talking about essential writing like copywriting and marketing and pitching and cold emailing and networking and getting people to do your non-paying or low-paying indie project and texting people who need to show up on set. I'm talking about all of the writing that we do that becomes infrastructure for our career. These things that we do, these emails that we send out become collaborations. These grants that we submit for become funding. And the better we write, the better results we're going to get. And when people really know how to write, this is when you get eyes on your work. It is how people pay attention. And it's interesting because everyone's like, well, no one has any attention these days. Everyone has the attention of a goldfish. Yeah, like totally. I can't tell you the last time I put something down and knew where I was putting it. I'm usually just dropping things around my house and then like spending half the day looking for them because I wasn't paying attention. And also, when things are worthy of our attention and when things grab us and hook us and help us reframe these obvious thoughts that, we never thought of this other way, we pay attention to them. We are also capable of attention. And I think that, is an amazing thing. If we can get attention in the goldfish era, like we're doing some fantastic work. So the first thing that we have to do is know how to write. The second thing that I think is super essential is mastering the market and release. There's a difference between posting something and releasing something, right? If you post something, you put it up and you kind of cross your fingers and hope. When you release something, every single thing you do is intentional, from what you say, from what you don't say, the time that you post something, how many things you put out there, who you're working with to collaborate, who you're working with in partnerships, what cultural moment your work is speaking to. I mean, there's so many questions that you can answer when you think about releasing. And now that we are in this moment where distribution is absolutely a mess, I don't mean just for film, for music, for books and writing and publishing, for for everywhere, distribution is a mess, right? Because the distributors are taking as much as they can get from the creatives and giving it to the shareholders and putting the onus on the individual creative to get their work done and out there. And if it's good enough, then the distributors aren't even going to help you with it. They're just going to take credit for it. So knowing who your audience is, knowing what things are important to them, speaking to those things, that gets attention. And there are lots of different releases that you can do. There are different ways you can release. You can release archives. You can release limited edition collectibles. You can release product drops. You can do merch collaborations. There are so many ways that you can gamify and make releases fun for you as the artist and actually make the marketing and the release part of the art itself. The third thing that an independent artist, a 21st century artist, needs to do is have solo systems and standard operating procedures and structures. There is no way to accomplish everything that we want to accomplish without having some system in place to do that. Like, there's just not. I have, what is the past tense of wing? I have wung it. I have been winging it. I have been winging it. I've wung it. That's kind of more fun. I've been winging it for years. And then I had kids and I was like, wow, that strategy isn't a strategy at all. It doesn't work. And, I'm sure you have something going on in your own life, whether you have kids or not, or you're moving, or you're taking care of parents, or you're, trying to date, or you're going to grad school, whatever you're doing, or you're just living life as a human in 2025. That's challenging enough. And without structure and without systems, we cannot see where we are. Some people probably don't need that. I should just caveat. And if that's you, great. That's exciting. And I wish I were you, but I am not you. I need to know where I am so I know where I'm going. And so I can also see where I've been and have a realistic outlook of what I should be expecting of myself. There's a lot to do. And systems help us both check things off the list, of course, but also help us go deeper into the things that are interesting to us. There's an interesting thing that happens when I know what my kind of structured, I don't want to call it research phase, but my gestation phase for a project. Right now, I'm working on a screenplay and I think I have to totally rip the whole thing apart, but I don't know exactly how to do it yet. So I am reading, I have a syllabus that I made for myself, and I'm just reading books and I'm watching things and I'm letting things come into my consciousness and my unconsciousness, and I'm not trying to do anything with it yet, because I know eventually, after I give myself this time to go deep into these ideas and deep into narrative structure and really parse out what I'm trying to say with this screenplay, I know that when it clicks, I'll write it in 3 days. That's what always happens. I take a lot of time thinking, and then when I have it, I have it. That's it. And so having these structures doesn't just make us productive in the sense of oh, I'm going to finish my day and I'm going to have X, Y, and Z to show for it. It allows us to do the deep work. And when I do deep work, and when I really go into these ideas and allow myself to not feel so urgent, I don't have to rush, I can just write and I could just think, thinking is writing, right? I actually start to feel less urgent. I actually start to feel less worried of oh, I'm not outputting enough things. I'm not showing my work. I actually calm down. And that's a recent thing. And it could be attributed to a lot of different things. I'm not saying oh, you'll have structures in your life and then you'll be calm, because I I wouldn't say that. But what I will say is we get to understand our workflows a lot better, and we can see like, oh, I'm in the gestation phase. I get it. Like, I don't need to be putting stuff out right now. I need to be reading this book. I need to be taking notes. I need to be thinking about how act 1 turned into act 2 in that movie that I am watching. Like, that's all I need to be doing. And when we know where we are and we know where we're going, things feel a lot less anxious. And the fourth thing that the 21st century artist has to have is actually 7 things. And it is 7 revenue streams. Multiple revenue streams, diversified revenue streams. When I say revenue streams, I think the first thing that a lot of people think are, okay, I got to productize my skill. So I'm a voice teacher or I'm a singer and I have to become a voice teacher. But that is not it for us in this 21st century. There are lots of things you can do that. That's absolutely true. You can do that. You can productize your skill and teach people how to do certain things, but you can also do like really fun, unexpected creative projects. You can create a physical zine. You can do in-person event series for the launch of your project, for your book. You can do collaborations with people in different mediums. I mean, there are literally endless ways that you can create revenue streams for your work. And I think that people get a little bit worried about doing revenue streams because it sounds so businessy and sounds like, oh gosh, I don't even know where I would begin. But I am here to tell you it's actually a lot simpler than people make it. It's just new a lot of times. And the beautiful thing about artists is like we're already entrepreneurs. I mean, we are. We even if you're an actor, we have the skill set that we need to do this work, and it is a matter of directing our attention towards that skill set. And then one thing happens and that opens the door to the next thing. And then the next step is revealed and the next and the next and the next. And then you get through it and you think, oh my gosh, I just sold, X amount of tickets to my show. And I have never done that before. Or I just designed a line of merch to sell at my bookstore. I mean, there are so many things that we can make, and we cannot leave it up to Amazon to make them all. Okay, so great. How do we start doing this thing? If I were going to consult with someone on how to build their career strategy around being a 21st century artist, the very first thing I would tell them to do is to define your point of view, your POV. This works for a few reasons. The biggest reason, I think, is because it generates emotional heat. And emotional heat is this concept I've been thinking about a lot, about this line between like being overly emotional and having the right amount of emotion to actually, again, cut through the noise and make your art land, make the marketing for your art land. And when you have a really strong point of view, it directs you where you need to go. It directs you for what to say next. It directs you for where to put your effort. And it is a natural energizer. And when you have emotional heat in your writing, it's better writing. And when you have better writing, you have better results in everything. The next thing that a defined point of view does for you is it's good branding. Like, it is really good. You don't have to pick a color palette. You don't have to go on Canva and find a design for free or consider upgrading to premium to get the really good design. You don't have to worry about that, because when you have a point of view, that is your branding. Your ideas, your outlook, your principles, your guiding forces. These are the things that matter for a 21st century indie artist, not millennial pink, not gritty, shaky TikTok videos. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what things look like. It matters who you are and what you care about. And what's awesome about that is that branding starts to be more about your point of view than it is about your very many disparate interests. So you can be a chef and you can be a journalist and you can be a filmmaker. All of these things can be true. And your brand doesn't have to be, I'm a journalist, filmmaker, chef person. Once you have that point of view, people know you for it. and they connect the dots themselves. You don't have to connect the dots for everyone all the time. It's like I say with really good art, the artist makes the art and then the audience experiences the art. And that is the actual art, not just the art on a shelf, not just like the art in the artist's head, the experience with the audience. And it's the same with good branding. The experience of good branding involves the audience, involves the consumer. So if you put something out in your POV, you don't have to explain every single step for the audience. You can allow them to make their own connections. They will make the connection between you being a chef, a filmmaker, and a journalist if they know your point of view. And they will like it because it'll feel like something they haven't seen before. A major reason why a point of view works so well for the 21st century artist is very similar to something I learned in directing, which is there are so many decisions to make as a director. When you're on set, people say, this color shirt or that color shirt. Do you want this lighting or that lighting? This person is sick. What should we do instead? We have this much time. Where do you want to go? What do you want to eat for lunch? What would this character be eating? All of these questions all the time. And one thing that I learned was to know what not just the theme was, but what was the backbone? What was the spine of the story? And to always have that in my head. And while we were filming Kinsley Verses, I would always have in my head the spine of the story is this woman who is trying to find her voice. She wants to find her voice. And if a question would come to me, I'd filter it through that lens. And instead of making a million decisions, I made one decision, which is what is the most important part of this story that I want to convey. And then making that one decision made all the other decisions for me because I would know what to do when I was at a crossroads because I knew what the theme was. I knew where I wanted to go. And a point of view does that in like a macro sense for your career. So what is the foundation that you are laying for all the choices that you are going to take in your career? Your point of view is a lens. It's a filter. And if you take all the questions that will come, because there are a lot of questions, and you filter it through your point of view, you are going to get somewhere really interesting. So how do you even start defining your point of view? I think there are a bunch of questions that you can ask yourself, but here are 4 that will be very helpful to start. 1, what do you care about? 2, what do you believe in? 3, what makes you angry? And 4, what future do you wish for? What do you care about? What do you believe in? What makes you angry? And what future do you wish for? If you start answering those questions, you are going to come to understand your point of view in a really specific, wonderful way. Okay, so the 21st century artist, is she an iconoclast? Is she a Luddite? Is she just absolutely off the grid, out into the woods, and never to be seen by society again? No, she's not. They're not. I feel like we look at these things and we think, oh, independent, that means going rogue and like not playing by anyone else's rules. And here's the thing. We have to play by certain rules because we all live in a shared reality. Live in capitalism. Many of us live in America, and that has its consequences. We live in a society that we share with each other. And one person taking themselves out of a system is not going to shut the system down, right? It's like when people leave Facebook or Instagram. Facebook and Instagram do not close down, right? The people leave them, and maybe if enough people do that, that does have an impact. But my guess is Zuckerberg will go down swinging if he has to, and all of them will. The broligarchs, as the internet calls them. So what does that mean for the 21st century artist? I think the unexpected consequence of creating a career like this is not that we escape social media and capitalism, not like we extract ourselves from society, but that those things do not have as much power over us. I think what we get out of being a 21st century artist is the ability to take our power back, power to the people, and to reframe the things we've been told that we just don't believe. When you build your own system to communicate with your audience, you don't have to care about Instagram as much. You don't have to care about how to do Facebook paid ads. These things actually become irrelevant. When you have a direct line with your audience and you're releasing and you're creating a release platform for you and your audience to kind of dialogue on, you can make money without selling out your vision. You can make money without having to step back and like exit. You can actually go deeper into what you actually enjoy doing. There are a lot of things that we've been told are non-negotiables, in our businesses, in our industries. And when you become a 21st century artist, a lot of those things become negotiable. The current systems that we are a part of, they're not going to go away. But when we take the power into our hands as a 21st century artist, we work on what we can work on right in front of us, and we reject dogma and we reject traditional industry playbooks, then these systems become irrelevant in our daily working life. They just lose the juice. So we can go live our lives. We can drink a coffee and read a book. We can go for a walk with someone we love. We can cross stitch. We can run a book swap in our neighborhood for fun. And isn't that the point? Don't we just want to live and let live and make things a little bit more beautiful while we're here? That's what I want, at least. So here's the thing, and I'll leave you with this. When we create our own system, this whole episode has been me trying to convince you and myself and everyone in the world to own their own system as a 21st century artist. Don't try to break into the system, create your own system. And that is awesome, but it is not the only end goal. The end goal for me, or the ultimate goal, I should say, is not just one system, but a constellation of systems, an interconnected, generative, supportive kind of web of my system that works and your system that works and this person's system that works, and a collaborative movement where we knit these systems together. They are creative and specific and authentic and signature to us, but that we are not so competitive with each other that we can't lean on each other and we can't collaborate with each other. And when we connect with these other people, these other 21st century artists who are making things, making art, creating their own systems, we start actually challenging the given system that we have in a tangible way. We actually take on a lot more power, and we actually have the power to dismantle things that do not work and should not work. And that is when we can go somewhere in the future that looks as beautiful as what we see in our dreams. Okay. That is it for today. I would love to hear what you thought about this episode. Please leave me a comment on Substack and tell me if you identify as a 21st century artist, if there are other ideas that you have about creating these independent systems in this independent class, and what you feel like is working, what you feel like is not working. I'd love to hear from you. And I also have this one ask when it comes to sharing this episode. I would be so appreciative if you texted this episode to a friend. That's it. I don't need you to share on social. You could if you wanted to. I don't even really need you to rate and review this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I mean, you could, but the most wonderful thing that could happen is you text this to a friend and say, give it a listen and let's chat about it. That is truly the way I want to connect, is one to one to one. So if someone came to mind as I said that, please consider sending it their way. And thank you for being here, for listening, for doing all the things that you're doing in the independent world, in the independent class. We need your stuff, so please keep making it. And until next week, good luck out there.